All right. Let's do it. We're really doing it.
Okay.
This is the State of My Art podcast. Here with Mike Onofrychuk today. Am I saying that right?
I think that's right. There's no agreement in my family.
Okay.
But that's how I say it. Yeah.
Right on. And are you from Edmonton or from Toronto?
From Edmonton.
From Edmonton. You're back in Toronto for a little bit.
Back for good.
Back for good.
Or for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
You were back in Edmonton for the COVIDs.
Riding it out.
Riding it out.
With my mom.
With your
so
mom.
that was an important thing. I live in a little studio apartment. And really early March, I thought this isn't going to be good for my mental health.
Yeah.
And then I thought the same thing with my mom. She lives alone. So I thought, if we're going to do this, let's do it together.
That's a good call.
And then I was there for 3 months, probably too long.
Were you still renting the condo out in Toronto?
Yes, it was just empty. So I didn't plan that part well. I could have sublet it.
Yeah.
Probably.
Maybe.
But
it's a difficult time for that too.
Yeah. So I had some friends staying there.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe 4 nights.
Yeah.
Something like that.
What's it like being back?
Well, I forgot how good the weather is in southern Ontario compared to the prairies. So in Edmonton, sun sets 10:30, 11 at night. But there's more bugs.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like a really long day, and the sun rises early.
Wow.
But bugs, and it doesn't stay warm.
That's almost Alaska.
Yeah. Which is where my brother lives.
Oh.
So he gets that. And my brother with COVID, so his wife has an autoimmune disease of some kind, pretty severe. So they're locked in, and they still haven't left their house except to go outside on walks. So they get their groceries delivered, and they wipe down every single thing. They get all the produce, everything gets wiped.
Yeah.
And so they've got 2 kids, and so they've got their hands full.
Pure quarantine, isolated. Yeah, my cousin has pretty bad asthma, so she's extra careful. Because, I mean, I don't know, has it been proven that if you have respiratory issues that it can be worse, or are people just playing it safe?
She's just playing it safe.
Yeah. I don't know if anything's like been studied that it is, but it's better safe than
Well, when
sorry.
I was thinking about how this works, I think that there's the kind of regret. Let me think if I can get this right. There's the regret of having done something that drives a lot of behavior. So I don't want to be the person that goes to a party and then it turns out that I was the one that gave everyone at the party COVID. Yeah. So I think that's driving more behavior for people than even their own well-being. I could say, at least in my age group, because I would have a really hard time forgiving myself if it was proven that I was the one that I was some kind of super spreader. And I thought that with my mom too. If I were to bring it home to her and she got really sick, or what if she were to die and I was the one who brought it home, that was heavily on my mind.
When you first got there?
When I was there the whole time.
Oh.
And then on my last week there, I found out that I was at a bar with someone that had it. And so it was kind of, I didn't like that feeling, knowing that I took a risk that was not, there was no need for me to go out one time. Right. And then that feeling I had after of like, oh shit, what did I, it wasn't worth the feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even being vulnerable to get it, and you get really sick just because you decided to go out one time or not wear a mask at the grocery store or something. I think that's on everybody's mind. Also, something that like isn't really talked about is like, you should probably try and like stay healthy during this, because if you're just sitting at home and not staying healthy and not like getting sun and not getting exercise, then you're going to be, more likely to feel the effects of it, let alone get it. So, I'm just like, if I'm going to preach anything, it's that.
That's it. That's interesting you say as a performer.
Yeah.
That you're more cautious because you have to perform.
And I'm traveling, Like,
I don't give that a consideration. In my own life, I can just power through in front of a computer. Yeah. Blow my nose every minute if I have to. It's like I never worry about getting sick. Because, okay, I'm sick, and I'll just power through with clicking my mouse.
It's a little bit of PTSD, too, because every time I go to New York City for some reason, I end up with, like, some sort of fever, colds, exhaustion. I always feel sick every time I play there. So I'm always thinking, like, especially when I'm there, I'm like, all right, like, don't touch anything, wash your hands, kind of become a germaphobe for a day. Mm-hmm. And then other places I'm like carefree because I'm like, I always feel good in Colorado. Like, I'm good. But I don't know. I hate having a cold during a show. Like, that's why I make sure I get a lot of sleep too. A lot of people are like, I think I sleep too much. But I'm like, I feel way better if I get 9 hours sleep. So I'm
9.
I'm after 9 hours sleep if possible.
Really?
I mean, I'm all about like getting up early, morning miracle if I can. But if I don't go to sleep early, that's out the door first thing. I'm gonna sleep in because I don't want to be sick. Or if I do got to get up early for something, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna need at least a 2-hour nap before showtime. Like on the road, I'm taking naps like crazy.
You can just nap? You trained yourself?
Yeah.
Really? Come on.
I just force myself to do it now, yeah.
How? Like, how do you go to sleep?
Well, usually I'm just, if I need it, I am tired. So if I'm not napping, and I wish that I was, like if I blew a tire and then I had to change a tire, so now I ran out of time, then I'm exhausted and frustrated that I didn't get that nap, and I could lay down and get that nap.
So you've trained yourself. It seems to me.
I guess.
I can't nap. I can't just go to sleep if I'm tired. I need a whole, like, sleep ritual. What do you call
routine,
it?
sure, yeah. No, a lot of people are like that. I guess when I'm home, I'm a little more like that. But that's why I loved having the trailer in the van. I mean, the bed in the trailer is I would just like, all right, I'm going to beat the traffic, get to the show early, even if that means getting up early and driving all day. Mm-hmm. And then that nap before the show, because there might not even be anyone at the venue at 3 o'clock. So I'm going to nap from 3 to 5. And then the rest of the night, I'm just like, I'm so glad I got that nap in. Feel so great. I'm singing so much better. I'm not going to get sick this week. Like, all that.
Would you get sick that often? Just traveling and touring, is that?
Not anymore, but I mean, I guess I was. When I had like a full band, especially, maybe it's because I'm by myself a lot too. But like when you're sharing a van with 5 other guys who only got 2 hours sleep, then I guess you're...
But 2 hours is a thing? You'd only...
Yeah, especially
really?
on tour. Not me, but I know a lot of guys. When I was touring with Time and Distance, we would rent a hotel because like we couldn't all sleep in the van or it was freezing cold. And they would party until 7 a.m. and then sleep maybe 8 a.m. and then we'd be like getting kicked out of the hotel, or I'd be waking them up at 10 a.m. and they'd be like, yeah, like we got this we got this hotel to party. And I'm like,
okay, I've done that. So if they're partying till 7, where are you?
I'll just be sleeping on the floor in the corner.
And you can sleep through that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're some kind of sleep magician. With the napping and the...
But that's what I meant by at home. It kind of changes because at home, this house, you can hear everything from the other side of the house. When my brother slams the front door, and he only slams it, like all the walls shake and you can hear it, and that shit will wake me up. If like my dad's calling my mom from across the house, I'm like, oh, shut up. Like I can hear everything. So I don't know. I guess when I'm in that sleep routine and I'm not playing shows, because I think that drains you too. Setting up all that gear, playing that show, I'm like, oh, I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight. Subconsciously, maybe. So I can sleep through anything.
I guess the performance would be a big energy. Not drain's the wrong word, but it would take probably an enormous amount of energy to perform.
I guess it does, yeah.
Like a non-linear effect where it might be an hour performance, but it is equivalent to 5 hours of me staring at a computer or something.
Yeah.
Did you find it's like that? That your energy, like if you manage your energy through the day, which is I think a good way to plan your day, would that be like the most energy
I would
used?
say it does take a lot of energy. I think it was like this guy Bo Eason that said it takes 7 times your energy to perform. He does this like one-man play thing. But also I have all that gear to set up and tear down. And at the end of the night, I'm usually like, damn, I'm starving. My feet are killing. So, sleep is going to...
So you can sleep in the corner while there's a party going on.
Totally. One time I slept in Charleston, West Virginia, at this crazy, like, crack lady's house. It was one of our first tours through there. And she was like, yeah, y'all could stay at my place. And I slept on her floor, and the other two guys couldn't sleep. She was up partying till like 6 a.m. And apparently,
wait, how old is she? Just so I can get in my head.
She's probably like 45.
Okay.
Everybody in the whole music scene there knows her. I forget her name, but I've seen her at every show I've played there since. She goes to this bar all the time. Mm-hmm. And apparently she was right beside my head when I was sleeping on the floor, smacking this drum.
That was just so obnoxious. Okay. Just for why?
Playing music so loud.
Yeah.
The cops showed up, and I think I do remember like opening my eyes for a second and seeing like, oh shit, she's being so loud, the cops are here. But I slept through that night, and I remember that amazing everyone. They were like, I don't know how you slept through that. And I'm like, me neither. I usually don't sleep through that kind of shit, but I feel like if I'm on the border of getting sick, then I can sleep through anything. And it's a deep sleep because I really need it. And I think that's where, I don't know if you can call that a strong immune system or just like, I guess it is, because I'm fighting off this on the verge of being sickness. So, because I did feel like shit that night. I do remember feeling like, oh man, I
the
need
night with
sleep.
the drum in your face that night? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So nothing could pull me from that sleep. But when I'm at home, I'm so comfortable. I'm like, oh, I guess I need to go to sleep now, even though, I went for a light jog today and edited a song. Maybe I just didn't think enough, act enough. I didn't perform.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That makes me jealous, actually, of how satisfying it must be to be that tired because of something that you've accomplished.
Well, you're a morning kind of guy. You still doing the cold shower workout every day?
No cold showers.
No
I
more
did that for a
bullshit
year.
water.
One year.
1 year.
1 year. And then it was kind of like in Forrest Gump where he stops running for no reason. Mm-hmm. I just stopped, and I was like, well, that's enough of that. I had no reason to start or stop.
One day I just stopped.
Yeah. And it was unbelievable to stop. I never got used to it.
What do you mean?
The cold showers. I still get up at 4:45. That's easy.
Yeah.
But the cold shower, I never got used to it.
After a year, you were
After a year,
this
every day,
still sucks.
no exceptions. No hot showers for a year.
See, I just do a minute twice each shower. So I'll like do a minute of cold water, and it sucks. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'm making a minute today, but at least I'm doing it, and it's such an easy thing to get in. It's so quick.
Are you counting it in your head?
No, sometimes I'll put my phone timer just outside of the shower and then just like wipe the window so that I could see it. Mm-hmm. And then I'll like watch it, and sometimes I'll do a little more than a minute. So now I'm pretty confident that I'm actually doing a minute. And then I'll just like soap up and then do another minute right before I get out.
So your longest minute of the day.
Yeah, and I'm doing it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's
the
what
longest
I say.
minute. Yeah.
It's the longest minute of the day.
Yeah.
But I actually feel like a lot of benefits from it. Like I'll go in there with like, oh shit, my back hurts from doing push-ups today. And then the rest of the day after that cold shower, or like a lot of times it ends up being at night, which kind of sucks because then it's kind of hard to wind down. But I feel like, wow, my back doesn't hurt, my knee doesn't hurt anymore, my heel doesn't hurt anymore. Whatever's hurting that day, like if I play tennis, my feet are hurting, I'll just like use half that minute just on my foot too. Because I'm like, oh, it's basically icing my foot. So I'm kind of using it as that most of the time. I'm not really trying to like get brain freeze anymore, but I do. Like if I'm under there for a little bit,
No, I know.
I don't
It's
try and
awful.
freeze my head as much anymore, even though that's what you're like supposedly like that's what you're supposed to do is like really freeze your forehead and your chest, because that's what's really going to make the mental toughness. And I'll do that for a little bit, but I'm like, no, like that's like when you drink a Slurpee and get brain freeze. That's the worst feeling.
Yeah.
So I'll mostly like run it along my back and just be like, all right, this is just like icing a wound, but just for a little bit.
So that woman that was playing the drum in your face,
Yeah.
you stayed at her place. How often how does that happen that you and everyone stays at her place? What's the circumstance that happens?
Especially in Europe, that was like a common thing. Like, all right, who's going to put this band up?
So who says that? The MC? Or
No.
is there an MC, or how does this work?
No, with Europe, there was like a promoter for each show that was kind of the deal with hospitality. And there was 3 bands. So we would like sometimes have 3 different hospitality people that would kind of come forward and be like, okay, we'll take that van. They'll take that van. All right, guys, follow us. And sometimes we'd like end up in like a butcher, like what used to be a butcher shack warehouse, but now is like a band rehearsal room, and we're staying in this band's rehearsal room. So you take what you can get. Sometimes we were just getting a hostel and all spending like $7 each.
That's it? 7?
Yeah. Because we were kind of getting the whole area of these bunk beds. But yeah, they're cheap out there, Czech Republic. But then here in America, it's like, I guess, yeah, even Montreal, Canada, there's other bands and there's people who kind of get it. You know what was always hard? California, Southern California. I don't know if people are just like so used to bands coming through and they're maybe like, no, like
Fatigue set in?
yeah,
We know how this goes.
or we're paying all this HOA and taxes. No, I'm getting my house to myself every night unless it's this band. Or, you know, they probably kind of play favorites because they have to. Otherwise, you have a band every single night.
So is there band etiquette? Do you have a routine of who's going to have the shower first and this person gets up early? Is there... what's the
within the
dynamics?
band?
Yeah, if you're going to stay at someone's house, what's the protocol for being
Jeez.
good? Can you bring girls back with you? Is that okay, or is it?
I guess it
what's that?
depends. Yeah, it all depends. Sometimes you're just hoping that your band doesn't like trash the place, or like you'll hear stories of other bands who came through who were like really disrespectful, and they're like just really grateful that you weren't like that. But I don't know, within the band, it's kind of like, get a shower while you can. So if I know that there's 5 people, I'll try and get up an hour before I know we got to leave or bus call, and I'll try and shower first. And then sometimes, the drummer or someone will be like, I'm just not showering today. I need that sleep.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there's showers at the venue. So sometimes I'll be like, I know that there's going to be a shower at the venue. I'll shower right before I play. Like, that's the best. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure some bands have it where they're like, all right, who's showering today? Because there's 10 of us.
Well, I did, because a shower must be a nice thing on the road that isn't always guaranteed every day, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
A lot of bands are getting the gym memberships now. That's kind of a common thing. Is like, $20 a month, as long as 2 of you have a Planet Fitness membership. I mean, I don't know if it's still going to be the same with...
Yeah.
I mean, I guess gyms would open before venues would open. Gyms were open in the States recently, and I think they shut them back down. But yeah, if you have a gym membership, then you can bring 1 guest to any Planet Fitness, and there's like 3 in every city. So that's what I was doing. On
Good
my
idea.
own. A lot of places I would be like, I'm not even going to bother showering in this person's place. I would rather go get even a half-hour workout in and then shower at the gym before getting to the show. Plus, then I'm not wasting their water. But a lot of bands I know are doing that. And then just sleeping in their van, too. A lot of bands are like, we prefer to stay in our van and trailer than some stranger's house because of like the drum banging in your head, or there could be cat shit all over the house for all you know. Sometimes you're walking into situations that you're just like, oh no.
And then you can't turn away, right? You're committed. Once you agree to stay there,
Yeah.
it would be difficult to say, oh, this isn't for us.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm often the one who will be like, all right, everyone else on the tour wants to stay at this person's house. We may as well go, but I'm going to stay in the trailer. And now I at least have the whole trailer to myself, sort of thing. But yeah, I remember the last tour with Mainsail, we stopped, I want to say like Nevada, maybe. But we were like, oh, so-and-so knows someone who lives here in this city, so we can get a nap in before the show, because we had to get up really early that day or something. So I was like all for it, like, yeah, let's go do that. I need to sleep. And I ended up sleeping in the backyard on the concrete patio with my mattress because the whole house was covered in bird shit. This house owner just had a lot of birds, and their house was a mess, and it was just bird shit all over the couches, all over the floor. I couldn't find a clean place to lay down.
Really? That's disgusting.
Yeah. So I was like, and even the backyard was covered in dog shit. But I was like, this little slab right here of concrete is clean. So I'm going to lay here for an hour and a half and just get used to the smell.
And you slept okay?
Yeah, in the sun. Yeah.
So difficulty sleeping at home where everything's perfect.
Right. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But after 10 shows in 10 days and you just slept 4 hours, yeah, I could take a nap pretty much anywhere.
Fair.
Yeah.
That makes me feel like I'm not trying, or not trying is the wrong word, that I'm not pushing myself to find out what I'm made of, because I never have a day where I'm feeling that tired that I'm just so grateful for this sleep that I could sleep anywhere. It's an interesting...
I wouldn't even look at it that way though. Like, honestly, when you're out on the road, what's interesting is, I think this is why a lot of people either hate it or love it, is it doesn't feel like a grind, because it feels like you're getting away from your job. You're getting away from the tedious take after take in the studio. Even if you're a full-time musician, you're getting away from like all the monotonous, tedious day-to-day things. And you're out there not really sure what you're rolling up to. You're going to meet a bunch of new people tonight who are going to be watching what you have worked so hard to do and probably be really excited to hang out with you and talk to you. It's like, wow, you're getting to live your dream, and you're getting all this like dopamine of impressing people, which I guess some people don't really care about. Some people do. But if you're working really hard at this day-to-day in this monotonous environment, then you really appreciate it. So there's that satisfaction, but it is draining because you are doing a lot of things. You're driving a lot. You're setting up a lot of gear. And then the performing, if it really is 7 times the energy of not performing, then you are just like mentally exhausted and your body's exhausted, but you're still like on this high of like, sweet, like we're out here getting away from it all. So I think that's also why a lot of bands feel like, I'm just going to party at the hotel. Like, let's keep this night going.
Right.
This has been such a dopamine rush. And then a lot of guys eventually hit a wall where maybe they didn't sleep enough. Maybe they didn't get exercise. They were just like kind of going and performing, or they just, stand there with a bass anyway or whatever. And then they're like, this is brutal. Like touring sucks.
So you're saying standing with a bass, you mean that there's not a lot of exercise if you're...
I guess I'm generalizing with bassists, but no,
Is that a stereotype?
I don't, or maybe you're not moving any gear. Maybe
Okay.
you're not ever driving. You don't have a license. It's always
that happens? There's...
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of tours that I've gone on, I've just been the only driver just because I'm like, there's never more than an 8-hour drive. It's my vehicle. I don't mind it.
I'm not surprised at all.
I'm not
that you
going
would
to
drive.
I know there's not going to be, a misturn. And if there is, it's my own fault. I'm going to find the cheapest gas. Like, I love having that full control of the wheel,
But I'm not surprised at all that you tried that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you know me really well at this point.
Yeah.
But
I would let you drive. I wouldn't want that pressure.
But I would love being the passenger on like a bus tour, especially, or even just like, okay, this band's established and I'm just like playing for them. I would love to not have to drive. But I think that a lot of guys hate touring because they're like exhausted from not doing the fun things that, I don't even know how to turn this off. I got to restart the cameras anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know what my point was. I guess like it's a good example of the more you are happily grinding, the more you're gonna like be okay with sleep. I mean, you're not, especially after doing Warped Tour, because those days sometimes you can just get away with not getting any sleep at all for a night, and then the next day,
Because you're partying?
No, more so. Maybe that. I'm sure a lot of people are that, or else you're like just so busy with the full day of events, whether it's moving all your gear or trying to promote or try and sell CDs in the parking lot. There's a lot of that going on.
Still, or is there still? I don't have a CD player. No, but I mean like a CD. I don't have a CD.
No, yeah, a lot of people are still trying to hustle CDs. I still sell a lot of CDs on tour, just even main sale. It's like, if you don't have vinyls, the next best thing is a CD. And if you don't want to spend $30 on a vinyl, the next best thing is
Do you
a
have
CD.
vinyls you're selling?
I don't.
Main sale?
No.
Okay.
No, we probably should. I probably should have done vinyl too, but I just felt like that was such a big ticket item that only very small percentage of my already small following would go for it. And you have to make so many, and it costs so much to make them. It takes so long for them to be made. But I'm sure.
What's the cost ballpark? I'm just curious.
If you're only doing 100, I'm thinking it's between $12 and $16. I think I was quoted $16 each to do 100. So, what are you going to sell them for 20 and make $4? I'm sure most bands are like, printing them in the thousands. So maybe they're only $8, $7. I would hope.
Okay, well, here's what I was thinking of you driving.
Yeah.
And with other people, right? In the van?
Yeah.
So
sometimes. Not lately.
I have a limit to time with people every day. It's kind of like a countdown clock, or there's something where eventually I need...
You recognize that?
Yeah. So I would need to almost rudely, like I'm putting my headphones in and I don't want anyone talking to me. Just like, I'm not trying to be antisocial, but
it's so funny hearing that from you, because I always considered you like probably the best listener I've ever known.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
but you probably just consciously know that after 5 hours of hearing this person talk or complain, that you're gonna be like, all right, I can only take this for so long.
Oh no, I don't even mean it in that way. It's a difficulty I run into with dating. So I have a really hard time in dating people, because so if someone stays over and then the next morning they want to know what we're doing.
Right.
But I've already spent the night, whatever we did that night. And then I'm used to morning routine. I don't know, sacrifice is like too extreme a word, but I don't have my morning like I normally do.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And so it's like a fuse has been lit the night before, and it's coming to the end of my, like I need time alone, which is really hard to explain to someone that when you want to separate ways for the day, when you say, oh, I'm not doing anything today, but it's like it's time to leave. And it's hard to explain to someone that I have nothing to do today, but I still need the day to myself.
Yeah, I think like having space away from bandmates, I guess, is what you were asking.
Yeah, how do you...
In a van is important because there would be a lot of days where, well, Time and Distance was a good example because we did multiple tours together and we were always in the same van, whether it was the van in Europe or the van, my old van. And they would often be sleeping while I drove. Or I would have one person up front with me, but that person was always rotating. So I never really got to be like oh God, like I can't stand this person, or like it never really became that. But I know with a lot of bands that does become a thing where it's like, I love this person, but I hate touring with them. And it's because you're in the van with them all day long, and then you're at the show with them, and you see their agenda and their daily habits at the venue. So I guess I hit a little bit of a wall with that with some people if they're like being lazy or they're like, consistently being, a problem at venues or whatever. Then it's like, oh, this irks me. Obviously, it would with anyone, even if it was just like a 2-day thing. But if someone's like easy to get along with, then I'm always like, hey, this person lets me do my thing. They respect me. They respect, what I'm after, the goal that we're after here on tour. As long as there's that, then I don't really mind. But with the Mainsail tour, we had 2 vehicles, and I always had like someone new in my van with me, or someone would do like 5 days just because they were like, I like being in the van. There's more room. I don't know if they liked it or they just wanted to get away from someone in the car.
So you had a car and a van.
Yeah. So the car was 3 or 4 people. Mm-hmm. And then the van, all there is the driver's seat and the passenger seat. So I'm always driving the van, and then I always have someone else in the passenger seat. If it was Noah, he wanted to know like, what else could we do to benefit the tour? If it was Nick, he wanted to show me a podcast, or he wanted to show me this band or that band. If it was James, he wanted to show me like stuff he's been working on in other bands, or some bands that he liked, or some old school 90s bands that he liked. So there was always like, and then the drummer was always showing me if I would go sit in his car, because one time Noah did drive my van, and I just like slept in the back of Isaac's car. He's always playing like new music, and he's trying to like listen to it 3 to 5 times before he can have an opinion on it. Like he's very structured listening like that. Mm-hmm. So I had like a equal balance of different people. But even when I would like tour with, just Stan, who ended up like hating my guts because I'm so one track minded with the touring, and like I know what I want to get out of the tour. I want to go to the gym. I want to shower. I want to get to the show early, maybe take a nap. And that could be really exhausting for someone who doesn't want to do any of that. And then if I see them down in the gutter about, getting sick of all that or whatever it may be, then I'm like, it confuses me. Like, I'm like, why aren't you stoked to like get after it like I'm getting after it? Or why is it like an issue that, don't worry about what the other bands are doing or whatever, they might be complaining about. But it never really bothers me to be with the same person all the time, especially with my girlfriend. Like, I'm never like, I've had enough of this person, unless she's on a rant or on something that's like, then I'm like, you've changed. Like, go back to how you always are, and then she will just naturally, and it's like, okay, cool. So I don't know. Maybe that's just from getting used to, maybe I've just been at this so long of being with the same people all the time that I'm like, okay, I can deal with this person for a long time. I can't deal with this person for a long time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think that one benefit is, like, on a road trip, you can really get to know someone. Mm-hmm. And especially in a car.
Yeah.
Where my questions tend to get deeper and deeper with car time, because I've got a captive audience that I can really,
right.
like, they can't really escape. So I can start finding out more about, their insecurities or the interesting parts of their life.
Yeah.
So I really like car time. And I feel like in the van would be where I'd want to go, because a group of like two people, it's hard if there's a third person in the back to include them in the conversation because of car noise. I know that going out for dinner, like 5 people is not good. I find that as the people increase, the topics get to the lowest common denominator of like shared, whatever you. So then that's where talk gets to the weather and like common events, and you're just dancing around the surface and you're not really getting to know people.
Right.
So 2 to me is really good. 3 can be really good too around a table. Mm-hmm. But then 4, 2 of you can split off and then rejoin the foursome. But at 5, it becomes very. I've just noticed now that, so if I'm going to be the 5th person, I'm starting to turn down those kinds of invitations, because I know the conversation will be. I shouldn't say I know. There's a probability it's going to be current events that people don't know what they're talking about, with some stupid black and white opinion that removes context and nuance. And I don't like living. Everything is in context and nuance, I think. Yeah. So I would love one-on-one in the van. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even that I get tired of a person. I just need like a couple hours a day just to myself. Yeah. So I would just wonder, because you're a thoughtful, like deep thinking person. So I just thought maybe you needed a couple hours to yourself just to make sense of everything going around you, all the social interactions and.
Yeah, no, I still do. And I'm able to get it. That's what's nice about it being like my van too, is I can be like, all right, if all you guys want to go out to brunch, I'm not into that. I'm going to go to the gym because I haven't in a week. If you can all fit in that car, that would be great. I'll take some sleeping bags. I'm going to go to the gym. If you guys want to meet there.
Okay.
So there was days where I'd do that, and it goes a long way. It helps. Because, you're like going back in your own headspace. You're actually self-improving. And then, like you didn't go waste $25 on eggs.
I knew that was coming. Yeah.
Man, you're like the host today.
Oh, I don't.
You always ask such good questions, and like you're such a good listener that I'm like,
thank you.
I'm stoked to have you on, man. Thanks for doing this.
I feel nervous. Even my heart rate's a little bit high.
Oh, really?
A little bit.
You get that on your phone?
Yeah. I just recently took up cycling.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't say I took it up. I'm trying it. And it's interesting with, so I've got commitment difficulties, and
I don't believe that.
So if the apartment I live in, I was out of town one time. I think this really describes my vibe. And a friend of mine, Andrew, stayed there overnight. Yeah. And he had a girl with him, and then she didn't know me. And so she said, "Oh, whose place is this?" And he said, "Oh, it's my friend Mike's." And she said, "Someone lives here." Because she didn't think anyone lived there. She thought it was an Airbnb because of how empty the entire thing is. She said, "There's no pictures. There's no identifying object in here to say that this belongs to a person." Right. Because I haven't committed to living there. Oh, okay. It's just a bit of furniture, and I could roll out of there the next day if it could happen. And the same thing with my bicycle, where I don't want to commit to caring for a bike that's expensive, because I'd have to like bring it into my condo with me. Mm-hmm. So I have a $100 bike that if someone wants to steal it, then that's just Toronto life. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I got onto that. Oh, so it's the cycling anyway, so I've got a heart monitor on for that reason. And I knew coming into this, it was a little bit higher before, so I'm down a bit.
It's funny, man, how like I'm finally getting used to just talking into cameras and having cameras pointed at me, even though I'm like performing in front of phones and cameras a lot of the time, and like I'm videoing myself playing drums and stuff for my live show. But something about like talking, or if I see someone filming while I'm talking, I'm like, like I would always say a lot more ums, and like it was just a lot less natural. Or touch my face. Like I still do that kind of stuff that people do when they're on camera, and I guess I'm sure my heart rate goes up too, where it's like, oh shit, this is being documented, or I'll lose my train of thought. That's why I didn't want to do this for a while. I was just doing blogs because I was like, I'm gonna get my point across on a lot of topics a lot better if I'm able to sit, think, write, and like flush it out that way. And like a lot of people, even like my family members, were like, you're actually a really good writer, and I didn't really see that in you. I'm like, yeah, because when I talk, or when I'm like when I'm under like pressure and talking, my vocabulary goes out the window. Like I don't really have the time to think that I do when I'm writing. So now I'm like just trying to, so now I just started it because I'm like, this is the best way to get better at it. This is the best way to get used to it. But yeah, like, sorry, I got your stress level up.
No, that's such an interesting compliment when someone says, I didn't think you could write this well.
Yeah.
Right? It's such a...
Yeah.
Like it's a compliment, and I mean, I would take it as such.
Well, they never saw my writing before, right?
Yeah.
That's all I took it as.
No, and you should. I just mean there's some people that are maybe, I don't know, they're too hung up on their ego or something. I don't want to... We all have our issues where they would take something like, oh, you don't think I could write? You think I talk like an idiot or something?
Are you a doubter?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that way about a lot of things. I get that way more so about my music. Like when someone's like, when their ears perk up on this one song, and I'm like, well, what about the other ones?
Oh, really?
A lot of people like those other ones.
Really?
Did you even give the other ones a chance? Are you just giving this one a chance right now for some reason? So I get defensive about that in my own head.
Still?
I mean, I take it with the grain of salt that it is now. Like, I'm just like, okay, they like this song because they have a nostalgic connection with it. Like, if it's an old song, okay, they like that old song because they have a nostalgic connection with it, or it, like, touches their genre, their preferred genre in a specific way, or it's authentic to my sound or how they picture my sound to be. Like, there's so many variables on how music can be subjective, especially your own. So I just kind of take it with an appreciation. I mean, I always did, but more I'm just taking it like, all right, if you're going to like that song, eventually I'll get you with another one of those, you know? Or like, at least thank you for liking one song, because most people won't even listen to one song or even 10 seconds before they're like, don't know them, you know, or whatever the case may be there.
Are they all the same amount of work? Like, do you consider every song to be its own?
Yeah.
So that
in some way, shape, or form, they go through, you know, an insane amount of OCD. I don't think there's one song where I've been like, I just kind of phoned that one in and it worked.
Not really.
Yeah. I think all of them were like, at some point, you know, I had a hurdle to get over, or at some point I was like, all right, now that this simple song is ready to go, I'm going to slap a bunch of harmonies because that's going to really make it shine. And then that process becomes, like, the last step becomes an insane amount of time for me. Or I'll get it into the mix and I'll be like, no, like, it's just not resonating the way that I pictured it. And I'll have a shitload of notes, and then another mix will come back to me and I'll have more notes, and I get really obsessive on that end. But I'm always like really happy that I do that kind of stuff, because listening back to some of like the earlier mixes or what the song was before I decided to rewrite all the lyrics, and I'm like, nice, I'm glad if I'm gonna release something, then I really put a magnifying glass to it. But there's like a shitload of songs that I did phone it in, and I was like, I don't really see myself investing the 110% into that song, so it's not even gonna get a chance. But I could be wrong.
You mean you won't release it then?
Yeah, if I know that it's not going to be released, it rarely gets past the point of production. I won't even go track drums for it.
And production, is it 20 hours per song? Like, what's the...
Sometimes, because I'm doing a bunch of songs on drums and then a bunch of songs on bass, it's hard to tell. But at some point, they're getting like a good, 2 or 3 day stretch of just that song.
Really?
Yeah, so sometimes it'll be like a 30-hour, whether it's like comping and editing a bunch of vocal takes to get the best vocal take. That might take me an entire day. Just because I'm like going back and going crazy and then listening through it again and being like, no, I need to re-sing it. And then I'll take the existing comp and the re-sung comp and make a hybrid. So it could end up taking, 10, 12 hours.
Can you lose, I've got a friend who made a movie, and after watching the movie 4 or 5 times, I find I kind of lose an objective sense of where the beats are and where it's working. I kind of lose what it would be like to watch it for the first time. That's what I mean. I can't tell what it's like to be first introduced to this character. And
a song, especially, you only get 3 minutes to really just like give it a first listen to someone. So like sometimes...
Yeah, so what happens there?
That's why I especially value people's subjective first listens and try and really get their full attention as they're checking it out. And that's why it's a lot better to get like someone who knows the process of making a song, because they're like, all right, I'm going to pay attention to what the song is even about. I'm going to pay attention to what the dynamics are doing verse to chorus. And then sometimes it's nice to get someone who doesn't know anything about music. Just like a filmmaker might be like, this person doesn't really know how to make films. What's their opinion on this film? But I got to take it with a grain of salt because they could just not be their genre.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. So like there's part of my mind that's like, you can't worry about what other people are going to think. You just have to be confident in what you're creating, even though your objective opinion is out the window because you've been at this thing for 100 hours. So I don't know. I guess the anchor on that side is, how close am I to my heroes? How close am I to what I look up to? Is this drum beat as close to said drummer that I want this song to kind of emulate? Or is it a hybrid of a couple drummers that I really look up to? Is that fill hitting like so-and-so's fill hits in that one song? Then
that's interesting.
Yeah, well, like without even writing it with that intention, a lot of times I'll look back and be like, I really took influence from Travis Barker on that part. Is it as good as Travis Barker's take? Is it at least close? Are the tones what he would go for? Or are the tones more Aaron Gillespie? Because that's fine too. He's a different drummer that I look up to. Mm-hmm. So if I have Travis Barker's playing style with Aaron Gillespie's tone, maybe I'm onto something unique. And then, you're almost like pumping yourself up on something that you've been working on for so long that you didn't really realize you were taking influences from others. But that's, what art is all about.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Even movie makers, I'm sure, they're stealing from their favorite directors and kind of making this crazy hybrid of a bunch of different styles that hopefully resonate to the general public, and a lot of them are probably like, I don't care if it does.
That's so interesting. The depth. So there must be really gratifying getting closer and closer to what you would define as perfect, right? Because it's your definition of perfect, right? What you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. I think a lot of times, there's definitely a back and forth still when you're almost done, where you're like, this sounds exactly how I pictured it sounding. I'm really proud of this. And is this even good? Is this, did I make a bunch of wrong turns along the way? So that now I'm listening to it and it's actually just another mediocre song that will just be a B-side in my catalog of songs. There's that, and that's, I'm sure, relatable for so many artists, but you know, everyone will say, nah, I get rid of that. You got to throw that out the door and just stay positive. But a lot of the significant changes that I end up being really proud of, and I go back to that side, come from that self-critical doubt. So.
Do you ever get to where you're like, this is perfect? Or do you have to have a limit of, like, the diminishing marginal returns are so bad that I need to stop this obsessing?
I think there is a point where I feel like I let things go that I know I have to let go. Like, oh, I didn't have enough grit on my vocal on that one part. I'm not going to go re-sing the whole song. I probably will not sing it as good as that take if I go do that right now. I could train for a month and go back and re-sing it. But
really, train for a month?
Well, you know, especially with drums, because I'm really new to drumming.
How new?
A couple years of like actually, and I'm so off and on that like for 3 months I won't play any drums because I have nowhere to play them or I have no reason to.
Oh, that's got to be hard to come back to.
It's actually not too bad. I just get on the practice pad and I'm like, all right, I'm right up to speed. I'm actually a little faster than I was just from, you know, getting it back and pushing a little further. And that's like, especially being like a multi-instrumentalist, you kind of have to go through that. But luckily I don't lose things as much as I probably could if I didn't just like, if I wasn't able to just bounce back to that mindset. Or like time goes so fast now that like 3 months feels like, yeah, I remember how to do this. Okay, it feels like a week ago.
Yeah, okay.
But I always just go into it thinking like, all right, no matter how many takes you have to do or how, you know, how far away from Travis Barker you are in the studio at this moment, don't let it stop you from putting music out. Don't let it stop you from, like, in that moment, I'm settling. In that moment, I'm like, this is the best I could do right now in this moment of time, and I'm going to look back on this release as, oh yeah, I could really only do my paradiddles at 160 BPM back then. Like, that's where I was. So that's why, you know, that ability is that. And that's more of a performance thing. But I also look back on some of my writing the same way. Like, I'm not going to, especially once it's released, I never look back on my writing like, oh God, how could I have said that or released that?
Really? You don't?
No,
okay.
If anything.
So what are you thinking? Yeah.
I almost do. But then I think that's where I was at that time. That's the best I could do at that time. I know it because I put 100 hours into that shit, that song, you know, and I went ahead and did it. And on that note, even though I don't think that those are the greatest lyrics ever written, I know that it will resonate with some people in that mindset, in that point of their life. They might look back at it in 10 years and think, ugh, how could I have sang along to that? But that's on them. The fact that I wrote a song called Creep Your Page is where I was at that point in my life where I thought that was a relevant song to my world and other friends' world, and they ate it up. A lot of people in my circle loved that song. A year later, I'm touring with other circles, and they're like, you really wrote that shit? I'm like, I know, it's ridiculous. But that's where I was at. Like,
oh, that's so good.
You know, that's a perfect example of it. All right, and we're back with my favorite host, Mike Onofrychuk. He's hosting today, picking my brain as he does best.
Is it not normally like this?
I guess it kind of is. I end up rambling a lot. But I find I ramble most with you in general.
Oh, interesting. Good. I like...
You just...
You know, one thing I do try to do with people is I shouldn't, not in a manipulative way, but I'm always grateful when someone says, you know, I haven't told anybody this particular thing. And I think, oh, you know, I've shown enough curiosity without judgment that they're open to telling me something, knowing that I'm going to receive it in a way that, like, oh, I've been more fucked up than that.
Not
Like,
only that, I think that, like, that's probably why you're so knowledgeable on so many things, is you just listen to what people, for some reason, people are more comfortable riffing about anything with you because you're, like, willing to accept and not judge for anything too, I feel like.
Well, I'm very curious.
Yeah.
And trying to make sense of my own life. So
Yeah.
other people have made sense of stuff. Maybe I can use their own mental, not their mental tricks, but how they've worked through their own
Sure.
life, made sense of it.
Yeah.
Because it's a very unusual thing to go through, to proceed through life your first time around. Like, you're figuring it out as you go.
Right.
Which is not really acknowledged or thought of, but like, you're just fresh out the box, and then, all right, go figure it out.
Yeah. And you only get one shot.
Yeah, and tons of mistakes, tons.
Yeah.
And you can't go back and fix anything, really. I mean, I shouldn't say that. You can fix some things.
Do you find that you stop before you make a lot of decisions? And like I know the last time we were hanging out, probably Johnny's wedding, you were talking about writing a book, and you were kind of building the floor plan of your book.
Yeah, so I don't know if it will be a book. I don't know what it will be or why I'm holding up on it. I think that I don't have a firm point of view is one excuse I have. Then there's a perfectionism angle where I don't want to release something till it's just perfect. So then I don't start.
It's going to keep getting better the more you work on the floor plan.
I keep thinking that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, which I've been talking about for a couple of years without doing anything, a newsletter maybe of articles I found that week that I liked. Mm-hmm. I might do that. So thinking back to school, I never wanted to try because I didn't see the point of it, meaning a financial, monetary reason. So I have this thing in my head, don't do something unless you can be paid for it. Because really, my interest in reading, why does it need to have a monetary component? Why can't I just like to learn just for me?
Right, like we were talking about before the podcast. Like, what is the point of doing anything? Kinda.
Yeah. But then I find this stuff so interesting, I think, oh, I should share this. I have some great article or piece of writing or some insight that makes my life a little easier to live or to make someone feel less alone. I think that that's really...
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be like a help mechanism. That's kind of what this podcast is too, is like, this isn't like me and other artists talking about, you know, how to do things the right way. This is more about just maybe you can relate to the fact that we don't know what we're doing. And, but I feel like what you would have to say in a book or whatever it may be would be like so helpful to a lot of people and so relatable and such a conversation starter for a lot of people to be like, what an interesting opinion, what an interesting perspective to look at life from, especially with all of the conversations you've had with so many people. Anytime I see you in a conversation with someone, I'm like, damn, that's a deep conversation.
Usually it can, I have to pick my spots, but yeah, I just like it. I really like to know. I feel belonging, I think. When someone's sharing time, because usually I'm after like the vulnerable moments of someone's life where they're feeling doubt.
Right.
And they do it anyway, or they've hurt someone's feelings and they don't know how to correct that. But I think that those kinds of moments are just really precious. Yeah. It's like, well, because I'm guilt-driven all the time. I feel guilty about every shitty thing I've said to someone.
Sure.
And so just talking to someone else and it's like, oh, they said something shitty too. Okay, I'm not the only one making all these blunders. Not like I think that I'm screwing up my whole life.
Right.
But I certainly want to get it better.
Yeah.
I want to be better and then define better, I think. When I say I want to be better, I think that I want to be more careful with my words and my actions with people. Mm-hmm. Just knowing that like, why not have a better interaction with someone where they feel a little bit more closer? Like, intimacy is actually I think something that I strive for, which is like weird to say intimacy with, like, what do you mean? You and a man are going to be intimate? And it's like, well, I don't mean that at all. And I even reject that as a man to have intimate friendships is something that is frowned upon.
Right.
Because I think intimacy with everyone in my life is a really worthy goal.
That's a book on that alone is like a bestseller, man.
The intimacy in your friendships.
Yeah, dude. Just waiting to happen, because I think a lot of guys especially are like, no, I have my friends from high school, and when I'm with those friends, we're basically back to our high school minds. Like, we don't really go much further than that openness and that vulnerability. But through my travels, I end up meeting a lot of people, and like it's a fresh start with these people, and you're like, you almost feel like you have a chance to be more mature or be a better person or whatever better may be.
You can be you can present how you want with a stranger,
right?
Which is an exciting way to even test out which questions are too far. Because I like to be on like the knife's edge of, this is too personal.
Really? I love it. See, I don't mind.
Well, with a new person, though.
Okay.
And with men, it is an issue where a lot of men don't know each other.
Yeah.
And they've been friends for 10 years and they don't even know things about them. Because I'll talk about a mutual friend, and then they won't know what I know. Mm-hmm. And because I don't know what it's like to be friends with me. So in my head, everyone talks this way of like intimacy and getting to know people deeply.
Right.
Not realizing that that's not the regular friendship.
Right.
This was just like recently I realized, everyone isn't talking like this. And I think that more people should. So maybe if there's something I'll do, maybe it's something around that.
Dude, there's so many things that you could write about that would be like just so like intriguing as I don't want to even say as an artist. I mean, this is like an artist platform podcast, but like I feel like you fit in so well because it's basically just someone who you should be having a freaking podcast is what I'm getting at. You should be asking these questions to people and like getting real like A-list celebs and prying deep, man.
I don't know how I would do that, which is, I guess, a limiting belief or something. I'm in my own way somehow. I think I'm trying to establish some kind of a foundation of top of mind.
Yeah.
Like a depth. I don't want to, right now, I feel like I'm a mile long and an inch deep.
Yeah.
Like I've got a bunch of information, like just little wisps of it.
Yeah.
And I don't have a firm understanding on the spot. So I need to pick a domain where I kind of can get a bit deeper on it. And I have for a while it was personality. I thought this is so interesting. Mm-hmm. And then it was, currently it's emotions, which I think I may stick with because they're misunderstood. When someone says don't bring your emotions to work, that's such a misunderstood statement that if you knew what that meant, you would never say it. Because for someone to come to work without emotions would be a dull, unengaged, someone who doesn't care about anything. And like that would be a nightmare to have someone in any job.
It's almost the opposite of what you want.
Yes. Yeah. Bring your emotions to work, all of them.
Yeah.
And be a whole person.
Right.
And like, because at work, I've, as you can imagine, quite deep relationships with everybody I work with. Yeah. And it's just, I think, why wouldn't you want this? Like, so something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's interesting because I never thought I was a creative type person because I'm defined in my work as the spreadsheet guy.
Right.
And that's not a very, people when they hear spreadsheets and numbers, they don't think, oh, look at this creative person.
No.
But then another person that, a friend of mine where I was reading his movie scripts quite often, he said, I would just say that you're more creative than not creative.
Yeah.
And I thought that's an interesting way to frame it. Because what does being creative mean?
Right.
I mean, God, what do you think? What's it mean to you? I should say not.
I guess it has become the definition of someone who releases their creativity. Being creative is just, everyone's creative. But you have a lot of limiting beliefs, and you have great reasons for each limiting belief. And I think I've
thought about them a lot.
Yeah, you've thought them through, and they make sense to you, and you are right on probably all of them. That, well, if I need to find my actual defining demographic, or I need to like figure out what it's actually going to be about. Like those are real questions that you need to figure out, and they're not easy. And I'm also of that same mindset of like, I need to brand this new project of mine to be exactly what it needs to be branded as. And there's so many things it could be called that could go, south or north. Like there's a lot of questions to ask yourself before you release anything. But to release nothing, you're just going to keep having that mindset of, I'm just a spreadsheet guy. But inside you have a million gears churning of creativity, and the only thing that's making me seem creative to some people is the fact that I'm like, I'm going to just go do that. I'm going to go make this one-man show. I don't have a band, I'm going to go make this one-man show. I don't have a booking agency, I'm going to go tour. And it's gained a lot of like DIY respect from a lot of people, but that's not even what I'm after. I'm just after like reaching the goals that I want to reach and the steps to get there. And like a lot of the steps I'm not even doing right, but I know that I have to do them. So that's why I think, that is what being a creative to me is. Okay, I don't know how to take the greatest photos, but I'm a photographer, so if I want to be a photographer, they might not even label themselves as a photographer, but they put a lot of nice photos on their Instagram or whatever. Well, now people look at them as, this person's creative, just because they put creative stuff out. But I think there's a lot of people who don't put anything out, that they just keep to themselves, or maybe they keep it on their own phone or voice recorder, whatever creative thing they're doing. It doesn't even have to be art. You could be writing the greatest book in your head, but no one on the street knows that you're creative. Even your friends don't even know how creative you are because you didn't even release a quarter of that book, Your book might be 6 different books.
Oh,
for all you know.
I've got several different tables of contents that are in the notes in my phone, never released, never done anything.
Right.
I was reading a book yesterday, I just brought this up, called How to Make a Good Script Great. Making a Good Story Great, I think. So this stood out, I thought I'd bring it today. It says, art without craft is simply self-expression. Craft without art is predictable and by the book. Put the two together, that's where great films come from. I thought that was really good. Art without craft is just self-expression. Not that there's anything wrong with just self-expression.
Yeah.
But just seeing the work that you put into your art, right? It's you're not doing it just to express yourself. You're trying to make something really great.
Right. If you wanted to just express yourself, you could just do a live stream with you and a guitar and look, I'm expressing myself. But if you want to create some form of art or film or whatever it may be that you really put a lot of time into, some people might look at it and be like, that's too polished, that's too thought out. But others might be like, wow, look at where we're at with, creation right now. And, I like to be on the techie side of things. Like, wow, look at, how advanced we are in the lighting.
Right. Yeah. You take pleasure in that.
Yeah. Like I like to, it excites me when I see other people do it. So I want to do it myself and learn and put it out there. I'm not the best at it, but I want to get better at it. And I don't know. It creates deadlines too. I feel like if you had like a deadline for what you want to get done or want to release, then you'll start having that mindset of like, okay, the deadline's coming up. No matter, I might be better in 6 years than I am right now, but the deadline's not in 6 years. The deadline's next week.
Sure.
So I better use what I got now.
Yeah, well, I've thought that if I knew what I wanted, then I could go and get it. But I'm unclear
Yeah.
even of that, which is another excuse. But I
That's
really
the
am unclear.
Same with me
what I
on a
want.
lot of things. Like I don't even know what to call this new band of mine, this new project of mine, and it's holding back songs that are pretty much done. Yeah, I mean, I even once I decide on a actual project name that I'm gonna go full 100% with for a very long period of time, maybe forever. How do I brand it? What's it look like?
So how do you do that too? Are you going to put a deadline?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah?
Yeah, at some point I got to put a deadline.
Really?
Yeah. That's the only way I get anything done. That's the only reason.
Yeah, you're right. I do need deadlines. I got
to have deadlines for when I put these podcasts out or they're never going to be released. I can edit them all I want just to see like, am I doing a good job? What could I improve on? Like that helps. But at some point I got to release the first episode with Steve Mitchell and probably be like, oh, my fifth, sixth episode is much better, But that's part of it.
How about? So I've read Dare to Lead, Brene Brown.
Okay.
And that book's a lot of vulnerability talk. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
No.
She's got a really popular TED Talk.
Okay.
So she's really blown up. She's on Netflix. And in the book, a lot of it deals with shame, which I didn't recognize that or realize that shame, like not feeling good enough. And I think that's probably like my number one, not even just excuse, like deeper than that, of like a belief of who would want to listen to me. And there's PhD people that research this stuff for a decade. And those should be the ones giving a message, not me, like some kind of armchair expert hobby reader.
And what a shitty feeling it would be to have a bunch of reviews of like, this guy is some, whatever you think.
Yeah, well, who am I to say to enter the arena?
Yeah.
Of, I don't know.
But you have the value of not being the expert that those guys are too.
Well, did you ever feel that though with the shame thing? Or that's 10 years ago and you don't think like that anymore?
I still do, but like I said, I just try and ignore it because I have these deadlines, basically. And
that's so interesting.
And another thing I see is like, there's kids 10, 20 years younger than me, maybe a couple years younger than me. Maybe they're even older than me, that are trying to accomplish what took me 10 years to accomplish, getting out on the road and having a full album, professionally mixed and mastered, doing music full time. These accomplishments that I look at as sometimes like, who am I to deserve that? I didn't, I didn't, get my master's in jazz at Humber, or like some of my friends went on and did. I'm no master of theory, like some of these YouTube guys, but I look at those kids who are, maybe a little younger than me, or maybe just trying to get after what I've accomplished. And, they're in the beginning stages of their music, and that's great. It's nothing that I would be proud of making. But they look at what I'm making and are like, wow, like he's able to make that, without being on a label. And then I look at what some of my heroes are making now when they come out with their new stuff. And I'm like, wow, like to get to that level of like mainstream label budget, success sound, of like really knowing what your demographic wants. It's a ladder. It's like playing someone in tennis who's been playing tennis for 10 years. And you're like, man, I can beat all my friends in tennis. I'm ready to play this guy. And then you don't win a single game.
Sure, yeah.
It's like, wow, there's so many levels of the ladder. And until you start creating deadlines, I mean, you might take 10 steps up the ladder past someone who's been taking a step at a time because you've really thought it out before getting on the road and touring. You've really thought out, like, you've really listened to every audiobook on being a musician, and formed your mind to master something that you haven't even gone out and done yet. But you're still going to find a bunch of roadblocks and obstacles that the person who's been doing it for a step at a time for 10 years, their music might not, be as advanced, but their mindset of whatever else they've been going 110% at, that is, they're ready for that, whatever it may be. I very, very poorly described.
No.
What I'm saying.
So without deadlines, do you think that's been the difference for you?
I think deadlines have been the difference, because and I think they push me to work harder if I know that the deadline's not for a while too. Sometimes they'll make anyone procrastinate, but if I know that the harmonies for these last two songs, for instance, don't need to be in until next week, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna really think this out. I'm gonna really go above and beyond and lay down more harmony vocals than I probably would have if this was due tomorrow. And then I'm going to really make sure that they're like elastic time perfectly with the lead vocal. Like I'll go above and beyond because I know the deadline isn't for a week. And then sometimes if it's the next day, I'm like, shit, I haven't even started. And I know that I have so much to do. I got to push everything else aside. But if I didn't have any reason to have a deadline, like, well, I don't have a name for it anyway. I don't even need to hand this off to be mixed yet. I'm just going to push everything back. I don't even need to make harmonies for this because I don't even have a name yet.
That sounds like my life. Yeah. That's my inner monologue every day.
And like we talked about before, what's the point of doing any of this? Like, what is the point of trying to make a bunch of music that other people are gonna approve of or be impressed by or be influenced by? And I was just listening to a podcast the other day, the modern day music production or something along the lines of that. And it was about, what is the point of even making music today? With all that's going on around us, who am I to express my art, my emotions, who I am, how I feel about something? I'm no expert. Not only that, I didn't suffer. I didn't, look at everything going on. What's the point of even releasing music with all these venues being closed down or all these beliefs going around or all these political debates going around? Like, who am I? And then he goes on to say, like, well, the more I talked about it with people, music has influenced who I am. It's going to influence who other people are. Like, you might gravitate to your favorite artist, or you might gravitate towards your favorite author and be like, I'm going to be a little more like that person. Now I see things through their lens a little bit after indulging in their art. And what an important thing that is. It's shaping who you are more than your parents did. And for a lot of bands, that's the case for me. Like, I'm a lot more like Blink-182 than I am my dad who does construction.
Right.
Just because of what I was, and what an influential age, of like music videos being on TV all the time. I always talk about that because it's like there's so many kids in bands nowadays because of that limelight from the 70s to like the early 2000s of like MTV being all about like, look at our stars, look at their talent, respect these people. That's kind of gone away a little bit.
Has it gone away?
Yeah,
Is
definitely.
there much music and MTV? Is there videos on still?
I mean, it's all streaming, so it still exists, but it's all like, within the context of the internet and like a algorithm sort of fed way, where like if you're into this, then you'll be into that, or if something goes viral, you're more likely to see it. Whereas the MTV thing was more of a gatekeeper thing, which for better or for worse, you were fed what was approved by the gatekeepers.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so now it's like a little more of like, well, anything can go, and as long as there's like a buzz around it and it goes viral, then it's going to have a lot more chances for people to see it, and then you're going to have a group of kids influenced by what the other group of kids were influenced by. I guess it was like that with MTV too, but it's just a different platform now, whereas like a kid turning on MTV now might just watch something like Ridiculousness or watching a bunch of bloopers. It's like, that's not music. It's great. It's hilarious. I love that show. But would I be doing music now if I was born 10 years later and that was my MTV? And you
really? It goes that deep?
Oh yeah, I think about that all the time, man. Would I be the same person if?
Well, you wouldn't be.
If the not only if what my favorite artists were feeding me was different, but if the media as a whole were feeding me something different. If I was born 10 years later, I might be really into politics. I might be out there protesting right now because I was very influenced when I was 14, 15 to go do that kind of thing. But because of what I was influenced by when I was 14, 15, the media was not feeding me, look at this looting, look at what this cop did. You know, I naturally wasn't engulfed in that world like a lot of my younger fans and my girlfriend happen to be. I'm not saying it's because the media influenced them to be that way. I'm not saying that it's because the media influenced me to like the touring rock star Blink-182 lifestyle that I'm obsessed with, but definitely has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, that's really neat.
And it was so prominent in the early 2000s that it's literally inked on my arm, you know? But had I been born 10 years later...
Yeah, what's that?
These are all album covers of my favorite bands.
Okay.
That I should make sure this is still going. But yeah, if I listen to an album 10,000 times, then I tattoo it on my arm, which I have a lot more to go, but what an interesting way to look at it. Like if the media wasn't feeding me what they were feeding me, and I wasn't born in this era, I'm sure it's the same for a lot of my friends that are out there getting after it for peanuts. You know, would we be doing this? Probably be after something else. And like, I don't know what led you to be where you are right now, but it's got to be something to do with the era and the generation and the art that you were fed and are being fed in this particular point in your life.
Well, I think that for me, that I was, I think, 25, and I was making a lot of money, and I didn't like my job, and so I quit. And I never thought that I would quit a job at that income, at that age, and I've never made that money again. And so I was really confused. I didn't understand what happened, that I was certain that if I reached a certain income level that nothing else would matter and I would be happy.
Right.
So I was bewildered. And then a friend, or actually my brother, he gave me a book called Stumbling on Happiness. And I read that, and
you turned me onto that book.
Yeah, and so that was the first book of 300 books or whatever. And I thought, oh, all the answers are in that book, and not all the answers, but many answers were in there, and everything made sense through that lens. So I thought, oh, I was like, my eyes were closed, and I was stumbling around in the dark with these ideas of what happiness and success meant, and it was wrong. And so then I thought, let's read another book, and then now it's gotten really diverse topics.
Yeah.
But so without that book, I don't know what would have happened. I would have been just confused.
Yeah, I guess back to my point of like, at a stage in our life, whatever the media is consistently feeding us, being the most prominent, relevant force of what we indulge in, could be argued that your brother or someone close to you, and the same for me, like I had a babysitter that showed me Blink-182. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then it grew to be an obsession, you know? And my brother would show me, you know, bands like Green Day and Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and then I became obsessed with that. So, yeah, I would I guess argue that like the people close to you or the people that you admire or look up to have a big, or even just someone who's like, hey, check this out, and you're like, why not?
Well, that's an interesting thing of life because it's non-linear. The impact of that book was so great, compared to the time it took to read it.
Oh yeah.
And so these are because life is non-linear. You don't know what small event will have such enormous consequences that it changes your whole life. So it's a reason to leave the house, you know, just to see what might happen.
Yeah.
Who you might meet. You know, you can go to a party, meet your wife, or you stayed home and that didn't happen. So that's kind of an interesting when you try to make sense of your life and look back at the moments that mattered and that you wouldn't have picked them ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it kind of inspires you to just get out and, you know, realize that you only live once or whatever. But it's also kind of scary in that, like, am I going to throw myself down a dark tunnel with this person that I'm going to meet at this party? Or this book that really pulled me into this rabbit hole of more books?
Yeah.
It's both inspiring and scary, depending on how you look at it. Kind of like the deadlines thing.
I've been thinking about deadlines since you brought it up. I should make one deadline.
Yeah, try it out.
One deadline, yeah.
That's just naturally what ended up happening to me because, you know, otherwise all the stuff building up to this potential deadline was all for nothing. Like, I bought these cameras 2 years ago and kind of didn't even really do anything with them. I just knew that I wanted to start a podcast. I knew that
2 years ago you knew you did?
Yeah. I was already writing the blogs and in the blogs saying like, eventually maybe this will turn into a podcast. I would like it to, but at this point I feel more comfortable writing. And then, you know, I bought the cameras and I was like, maybe it'll be like a sort of like day in the life of like how I do things, sort of YouTube series, or maybe it'll be a podcast with guests, which I gravitated towards more too because I know so many interesting people. But like, and then some of it became like some of my friends being like, yeah, we should do a podcast together. We should start a podcast together. And me and the singer of Mainsail were like, yeah, let's do a podcast together. And he thought of the name State of the Art. I was like, yeah, that's a great name.
It is great.
Do it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh shit, that's taken. Let's do State of My Art. And, you know, the deadline setter that I am, I'm here stuck in Canada with COVID, and I'm like, this podcast has got to start with Nick or without him. And, you know, that's one of the shitty things that I look back on. I'm like, that was really shitty of me to just start it without him. And, you know, he was a little butthurt about it, which he has every right to be.
Now, what about now?
I don't know. I mean, I still will probably end up having him on a lot of the podcasts. And I even told him, like, dude, like, you definitely bring a lot to it and would love to have you as a co-host with a lot of my guests. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this is something that I've been planning for, you know, 2 years without a deadline, getting cameras, buying gear, that it just kind of makes sense for me to just go for it right now. And whatever it becomes, it becomes. If it, you know, doesn't even make 10 episodes, then that's something I'll regret.
How many have you done?
Might happen. This is the fourth one.
Well, I mean, I made my point earlier about groups of people. 3 can work.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
3's okay.
I was like, yeah, noted. 5 people on a podcast would definitely be a little too much.
I find I've tried it because if you're at a business meeting, it's really interesting. If I'm in that world and we're out for dinner, and because I don't want to talk about business because I've got new interesting people and why are they here and what's their goal? What do they want from this meeting? Like I'd like to know that. I think it's more interesting than the details of the money details or the scope of work. These kinds of things are not as interesting to me as the people I'm with.
Yeah.
And so what'll happen, and maybe you never know what's the cause and what's the effect, but as soon as the meal would land on the table, the conversation would switch to personal topics. And I feel that that's such a ancient human thing of we're sharing food together. This is like harmony, cooperation.
That's interesting you even recognize that, but
yeah, it's but I don't know, maybe I'm switching the conversation because now I'm just like waiting, when's this food going to come so we can get talking about something that isn't business.
Yeah.
And because then you can leave the meeting and because I think the recap's fun of who these people are.
Right.
If you like, or however much of themselves they revealed.
Right.
I guess that comes back to my thing of intimacy and how quickly can you establish it.
Right.
Which is, I don't know if that's the right word. I think some people would be turned off from that word.
The word intimacy. I think it's fine. I guess I like get you, and I know what you mean by it. But yeah, I know what you mean by
Watch for the food, though. If you want to get to know someone.
I'm definitely going to, yeah.
Or if you have a business relationship that's kind of difficult, go grab a meal with them.
Yeah. And
even like how we're sitting, this is adversarial. So
right.
If you're having troubles with someone, if you sit on the same side of the table, you're forward looking at the problem together. Mm-hmm. Or if you go on a walk, then you're like facing each other can be kind of, it's a bit combative, like not in this circumstance.
Just, yeah. But you're saying like if you're trying to like work out a business problem or talk about, a future together, just the, I don't want to say subconscious, but the relation that it has to reality of like, or physics moving forward is a real thing.
Yeah, embodied cognition.
Right.
But we're just kind of built that way. A lot of our metaphors are through the body and movement.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing to think of. You can get lost in the weeds of that, which obviously I have.
You have on all this stuff, man.
But it's something I learned with this woman that I was seeing for a while is to sit up at a bar on a date.
Yeah.
So don't sit across, sit beside at the bar. And I found I really like that. Mm. Or the corner of a bar is really good as well. So now if I'm with people, I'll often sit right beside them, and it looks kind of weird and tacky to be like those people in the booth sitting on the same side.
Right.
But I'll do that, and if I'm with a friend, even if they're up for it, I prefer to sit at the bar, like sit right beside each other, close.
Yeah.
I feel there's something to that. Huh. So just I don't know. I got onto this thinking about podcasts and how you lay out and how you.
That was part of my thought process too, because I used to have this table lined up against this wall, and then I was like, should I just put the cameras on the table, or is there even going to be room for that? Or should we just like sit with our backs to the table, like in just regular chairs?
I think Joe Rogan does it like this, right?
Yeah, I was seeing most people do it like this.
I would go with that.
Yeah.
For that reason, if they've.
Right.
So I'm not against this kind of setup for a podcast.
For a podcast.
Or even if we were having dinner, I wouldn't say come and sit right beside me.
At a booth, yeah.
Yeah.
I do it with my girlfriend though. We're always sitting in a booth.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sitting across would be weird. But with my dad, obviously we're gonna sit across.
Yeah, my dad too. He would insist on it.
Yeah. Well, all right. Okay. We're well over an hour. Let's wrap it up. Thanks again, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
On this.
This is good. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Onofrychuk from Edmonton. Now you know someone from Edmonton. There's a lot of people from Edmonton, but you are the one that everyone needs to meet. Get those deadlines going.
Okay.
We're talking about deadlines. All right.